Yo, 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 what's good? It's Bear in the building. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Kueen Talk. If you are new here, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, leave a comment, let us know what you think of this episode. Today, we have a very special guest that is based out of Colorado, another Coloradian, Khalie Quiñones. Please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
thank
for
you, thank
joining
you.
me.
Appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Khalie, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, I like to say I'm too blessed to be depressed.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Too blessed to be depressed. I'm probably gonna take that from you, because
I took it from an old friend, so I get it. It's a good one.
that is very good. This ain't about me, but I've been going through a lot of shit in my life, so like too blessed to be depressed is a good motto to live by right now.
Yeah.
Um, why don't you give the audience just a little bit about yourself and how you identify in the community?
All right. Like you said, my name is Khalie Quiñones, Colorado native. Grew up playing sports. I've been an athlete my entire life. For a good chunk of my life, I was a musician. I've been a business owner, 3-time business owner, entrepreneur, tow truck driver for years. I've lived in several states. I think and now I work in the school system. I'm a paraprofessional now, and I coach high school basketball. I own a basketball company. I work with Gold Crown Foundation. So now, after doing all of that, I've kind of circled back to working with the youth, and yeah, I'm loving it here. It's great. So that's what I do now. That's a little bit, just a little broad spectrum of what I've done in the past and what I'm kind of doing now. But yeah.
And how do you
I'm
identify in the community, and what's your ethnicity?
I am a lesbian. I identify as female. You can call me her. But at the end of the day, I believe that we're all energy. So I've looked into all these different things, but I think where my heart like really fell is like we're energy, and if you can be the yin and the yang, then you have the ability to draw from divine masculinity and divine femininity and have the best of both worlds and kind of bring those things together. So I like to think of us all as limitless, and so I try to stay out of the label area. Kind of keeps me
Yeah.
down a little bit. Afro-Latino, my mom's side of the family is Hispanic, Mexican, African American, Indigenous, and then my biological side, father's side of the family. There's some brothers. They're African American. So I like to look at myself as a little bit of a mutt, in true American fashion, I guess, in some ways.
There's a lot that I want to talk about on today, because after doing some research, like you have been, this is like we were talking before this, but this isn't your first time on the camera.
Right.
I was like Googling you and stuff, and then I seen like you were a musician, or are a musician. I seen that you did take a little break though. But I seen videos from you like back in 2014. Like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, so you've been in it like for a while. Like you've been and before that, like you said, you were playing ball, and um but I like want to start at the beginning of it all. Like before we get to the different later stages, you're a Colorado native,
Hmm.
and what was it like, your upbringing like in Colorado? Like did you have
So
two parent household? Were you single parent
no,
household?
it was very different. Are you ready? Okay.
I'm ready. We're
All right.
ready.
Okay. So I'm the youngest of 12 kids, but
12.
between my mom and my biological father, I'm the youngest of 5. By the time I was born, one of my siblings, a sister, had passed away. So, by the time I was born, there's 4 of us. At that point, my mom was 19, so she had my brother, my eldest brother at 14, going on 15, and had 5 kids between that span. And a lot of people will be like, oh, it was different back then, and like older men dated younger women, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Like, it's been the same kind of cringy thing for a long time, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, older men impregnating or dating or being with very young women, and I know my mom, she had a rough upbringing and then had a rough go with my biological father. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of violence and pain. And I wrote about a little bit about that in one of my albums, Battle Cries.
Would that
Um,
be news? Is that news?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, the
yeah.
track news, and that's hard. That's a hard song for me to listen to now because since all of that, my biological father's passed away. I did go to his service and laid him to rest, and I saw all these things about him. I saw people, like this part of my family celebrating this man. While growing up, what I knew of him wasn't a good person, and I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that happens a lot to kids. And it's just natural. You're going to
Yeah.
hear one side. You're going to hear one side. And if you don't grow up with the other parent, naturally, you're not going to hear that side. And maybe when you talk to them, they might say a few things, but depending on, like, I don't know, depending on how much they want to tell, how much tea they want to spill, right, about the scenario, because they don't know how much my
Yeah.
mom has shared. But there was definitely aggression there, toward and resentment that I definitely carried for a long time towards my biological father. So at the age of 19, my mom was single. And then I recall at like the age between 5 and 6, meeting my biological father for the first time.
Okay.
I sat in his Stingray Corvette, and let me sit on his lap like a little kid, and you have a little kid on your lap and they're steering. So
Hmm.
it was that scenario. And the crazy thing is, fast forward, I don't know, 40 years. Fast forward 35 years, right? And to when he passed away. And that Stingray is sitting in his garage out in Bakersfield, California. So he was, they're all from California, but by way of, I think, like Louisiana, like southern roots on my father's side of the family. I think I could be completely wrong. Um,
So you were
but
raised by a single mother, a
yeah,
young
and
single mother.
until I was like, this went really fast because he came around one time and then gone. And then I feel like it was like in the same 1 or 2 years, we all lived in Loveland, Colorado. So there's this one day, this is crazy. There's this one day we're at the park right outside of the Chilson, and my aunt looks at me and she's like, "Hey, you see that guy over there with the blonde hair? You see that guy with the blonde hair?" And I look and I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, go tell him your mom thinks he's cute." And before that, like my mom could even grab me, I was gone. I was like, "Boop, see ya." Tapping on this guy, he turns around and I'm like, "My mom thinks you're cute." Next thing I know, they're going on dates. He's an incredible guy. 2 years later, they're married. They're still together today. He is an
Wow.
amazing person. He is an amazing person. Like, so,
Wow.
so we've had conversations where he said to me, like, I feel like I knew you in another life, and I'm like, it's very possible, like,
Yeah, that's dope that they're still together today, and like you're the one that
yeah.
ran over there and like made that
Oh, it's
connection.
funny. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I introduced my parents, my mom and my stepdad, and he was great. He's a white boy, and he was the first dude I ever saw dunk a basketball. He coached us all in sports.
Okay.
Um, I know my mom's side of the family went through a lot,
Mm.
and so there was, looking back, I see times that I spent with his side of the family that were really, really wholesome. And
Mm-hmm.
not saying that we didn't have wholesome times with my mom's side of the family or anything like that. I feel like it was just different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the love, like, how do I say this? Like my grandmother on my stepdad's dad's side of the family had this like soft love, like really
Okay.
fluffy. But on my mom's side of the family, it was like tough love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that that grandmother wouldn't give me tough love. I think that maybe they just looked at us different and they're like, oh, we got these poor little black kids and this is adorable. I just want to love on them. I don't know. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I
I
noticed
was
a
gonna
difference.
ask that, like they were welcome, like
Oh yeah.
being kids
I
of
know
color, like
there's like one person in the family that is suspect, but
yeah,
I never, I don't know, I never really saw it.
yeah,
I never really saw it because I was a kid,
right,
and maybe I'd see it now and uh, just based off of like who those, who that specific part of the family voted for,
yeah, right.
Um, so yeah, but
Would
um,
would you say would you say he
so,
okay?
sorry, go ahead.
Would you say he was the one that introduced you to ball and everything like that? Like
It's
is
crazy. I recall my biological father like handing me a basketball, or maybe we
okay,
played like dribbled. I dribbled the ball in the front yard on East Second Street, or something like that, right?
uh,
And then my stepdad came into our lives and just coached us in everything:
that's awesome.
basketball, track, football, like all the things. My brother played football, so I was like, I was just glued to his hip every practice. I was there. I wanted to watch my brother. I wanted to support. And I don't know.
So how was Colorado like growing up? Is I'm from Wichita, Kansas, so
Oh
it's
yeah.
very like not a lot of people of color. There's no
No.
mountains, not a lot of stuff to do. So what was that upbringing like in
Yeah,
Colorado for
Wichita,
you?
that would have been wild. Going to a come and go, and the kids are just like,
It ain't like that. It's not like that bad. I mean, there is tornadoes. Don't get me wrong, but
um, but no, we were probably like one of three black families
hmm,
in Loveland. And then some of our cousins lived here in Denver. Um, so it was heavily Hispanic and heavily Caucasian in northern Colorado. And now you're like, oh, I go to Loveland and I'm like, what the hell? There's like, I, I just saw like 10 people of color like me, like, and they're not Mexican, they're not Spanish, they're black. Like what? Walking around, and so it's like, hey, we're everywhere.
yeah,
Way
that
more so than the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, that's for sure. So, not a lot of diversity up there, but we were active in sports. So I think that's what kept us in the loop of things. And me specifically, because I got beat up all the time until I figured out how to stand up for
oh
myself.
really?
And I get jumped. Yeah, I got jumped by a group of YTs at a new school that we transferred to. They took my ball, just punked me, threw me down on the ground, started kicking me. It was bad. And honestly, I think that if my and our stepdad didn't come into our lives, that I would have a whole different perspective on white people. I'd probably have a lot of
Mhm.
hatred in my heart. But he showed us so much love that I was just like, okay,
Some
they're
of
not
them are
all bad.
okay. You're right.
They're not all bad. Okay, like this one
That's
really freaking cares about me.
that's wild.
I got in fights here and there. I got in some trouble throughout my high school years. Did some pretty dumb things. And I'm, like I said, I'm transparent. Like some of those dumb things landed me in cuffs.
Mm,
I've been to jail, not a good thing. I've
mm,
lived and I've learned and I've experienced a lot,
yeah.
but gosh, like I had to figure out myself. There's a lot going on. And, I think when I came out to my mom and one of my sisters, I was just like, hey, they're crying, welling up. And I'm like, I got something to tell you guys. And they're like, I date females, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. And they're like, well, we know that. And I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me? You could have saved me like 15 years of like trying to figure this shit out and like going crazy.
Why
Like
did you?
damn near killing myself multiple times, just
Oh wow.
like over, like out there partying and being just a promiscuous type of person in just the places I would end up in. Not sexually, because I didn't do any of that until I was in college. And then that was a whole other experience of like, I was tripping out because I was like, oh my gosh, I really like girls. And I'm like, is it okay that I like girls? Is this a bad thing? Like, oh no, I'm like freaking out. So then I tried to like hump the gay away. Like, I like, my body count is not out of this world, but I definitely have some experiences that I was just like, well, no, that's definitely not for me. Like, so
Interesting. There's
I
so
know
much.
where I want to be.
There you like there was so much said there that like my brain, the way my brain works is just like I wanted to stop you so many times, but I was like, okay. First, so you said like the moment that you told your family, you
Mom
guys
and
were
my sister.
you guys were already crying. Like why in that
I was
moment?
crying. I was crying because I was about to tell them something big, and I
Oh,
was a very
okay.
emotional kid. And I
And
still get emotional, but now I recognize it, and I don't let my emotions get the best of me.
how old
Uh,
were you then?
I think like 25.
That's when the first
Yeah,
time
like
you
I
came
told my
out?
mom, and I was like, and then literally like in the next 2 days, I got on a plane and moved to Alaska to go play basketball at the University of
University.
Alaska Anchorage. And I was like, guess what? I'm out. So I wouldn't have to deal with it. So I wouldn't have to face them every day. Right.
And
So that gave me a little bit of time to like work through the emotions and the feelings of like, okay, I just spilled the beans to my parents. I'm sure by now they've told everyone in our family. And by then, and yes, that was the case. Everyone in my family knew. And I felt like a little bit of that pressure that I had on my own shoulders was alleviated, I think. So
what was the reaction?
love you no matter what, like it was positive reaction. But for me,
Good.
I'm like mind blown. Like,
Right.
you guys, that's like knowing I'm walking around with a booger on my face or in my eye, and you don't say anything, or food in my teeth, and you just let me go the whole day. And then
What
I'm
was
like, wow, I didn't know that I had this in there. And then you're like, well, I saw it all day. Like, you didn't tell.
do you feel like your house was homophobic or
No, not at
no?
all.
Okay.
No. My ex-wife, uh, when we first started dating, she asked me if I was transgender. And that was at 29
Really?
years old. Yeah, I was at 29 years old, and I'm like, what's that? Like, and I'm 42 now, to give you like a perspective on years. But it was hilarious because I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then she, shed some light on me, and like, I mean, I don't know. And I start doing some research. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm gonna go dive like head first. So I go do my own research, and I write my parents a letter being like, expressing that I might be this. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Have you guys ever heard of this? And this is the cool thing about my family. I've just always been Q. I've always been Khalie. I've always been Q. I don't think they've ever like attached a gender to it. But what was funny was when I was making my argument, like I was like, here's my thought, here's my public statement, like I feel like I'm a lesbian and this is why, or I might be transgender and this is why. And they're like, well, we've never seen you as he, or she. We've just always kind of gone with the flow. And I'm like, yeah, no, no, no. You guys don't get off the hook that easily because there's absolutely been times when you guys have slipped up and called me he. So I think there was a little bit of eye opening for all of us
Mhm.
around labels and genders and all that stuff. And I think through me, they could see like that gender didn't matter because no matter what I did, I never let gender stop me from getting a
Yeah.
job, from making a team, from making impression, from going and talking to anyone, whatever. I've just
Yeah.
always been myself.
So you said at 29, your partner at the time asked you that question. And by the way,
Yeah,
like 12 years ago, to be honest, I knew like LGBTQ, but I never took the time to really Google search
dive into
what
all
the
of it.
acronyms were. So
Yeah,
like transgender was not a thing that I
yeah,
naturally knew of. I'm sure I heard of it or seen or have been around a transgender like growing up, but I personally 12 years ago that
right.
was I can't say that was my experience. So you like witnessing that 12 years ago, someone telling you that, and then you doing your research. Do you think that you like found balance during that time? Because like
Oh yeah,
for me
absolutely.
personally,
Through that
yeah,
relationship. When I tell people I'm divorced, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I'm like, "No, actually, because of that relationship, I learned so much." And by the time it started to sour, like I think it went a little longer than, I mean, that's a hard thing to break. 12 years is a long time. But
mhm.
when two people start to outgrow one another, one starts to outgrow the other, like if you stick around, that's like wearing a shoe past it fitting. And that shit hurts. It just hurts. You're like, why would I keep putting my foot in that same shoe expecting a different result? Not. Like eventually what happens, like if you actually grow through the shoe, it's force, right? Like
Yeah,
I don't want to grow
I
through
get,
this
yeah.
relationship and force it. Everybody's story is different. I feel like mine, I wasn't supposed to stay there, you know,
Hmm.
and so I feel like I'm supposed to be kind of working through these different relationships to grow and learn more about myself. And some of the females that I've dated have taught me more about being a female. Some of the men that I've been around have taught me about masculinity or what manhood is.
So you feel like you've had trouble like being more
Okay,
feminine in
yes, I got
ways.
you. So, yes, yes, and now I'm actually starting to open up more to my femininity, feminine side,
In what ways?
physically, emotionally, mentally, honoring myself as a female as well. Um, and gosh, on the emotional side, not being so hard on myself, softening up and following more of my intuition and being more nurturing towards myself.
Mm.
Like I've spent a lot of my life just being like, oh, you got to figure it out. You got to buck up. You got to get through this. And it's like, hey, it's
Yeah.
okay to not be okay. I've become more certain of myself. I've started making those steps towards loving myself, all parts of myself, and realizing that no matter how I dress, I'm beautiful. It just
Yeah.
happens to be that I'm more comfortable in some
Right,
Nike
that
sweats.
part. Yeah.
You
It
know, like,
don't it's not that I don't think I'll be damn right gorgeous in that. I just am not
right,
comfortable with that for me personally. Um
right. I probably,
so I seen an interview of yours like when you were at Alaska playing ball. Did you like like is that when you were like more feminine like with
I
dress wise and
tried.
stuff?
I
Okay.
tried. Yeah, I
Okay.
tried because I was like, all right, if I'm gonna try to dress girly, it's gonna be somewhere where no one knows me.
So
So
this is like
this was strategic.
right after you told your mom and your sister
Yeah,
you went to basketball and then you were like still trying to
yeah. I
take it
like bought a
back.
bunch of no, I bought a bunch of girls' clothes. No, I was like, no, I wasn't gonna take it back. I told him what I told him, right? And during that time, there was a girl that I was talking to, but by the time she flew up in December, I had already switched back because I was like, I can't do this. I did it for half the year, and then I was like, this. I just slowly went right back to what I was wearing. I was just
Yeah.
like, nope, that's not. It's not me. That's not comfortable. I want long sleeve button ups. Nice slacks and pants. And I want to dress how I dress like a stud.
Yeah. Why do you think you tried that? Like, why do you think you like were like, let me just test this out for a little bit?
Uh, I think I was still in a place where I wasn't certain about myself.
So you just weren't really sure of yourself still.
Or,
Um, even at 25, when you were like, you
yeah,
told your mom and your sister, there was still like, well, let me just try something else to see. And before that, you
maybe.
had mentioned you were having a lot of sexual encounters with men to try to do
Yeah.
the same
I mean,
thing.
it wasn't a lot. It was, I mean, to somebody who doesn't sleep with men, but like it felt like a lot,
Yeah,
right?
let me not
And I
let me.
dated a guy. I dated a guy that when I was out in Utah, and he was a Mormon dude. Like
Oh,
he almost got me. Almost. Um, But then like a couple things happened and I was like, y'all are crazy. This is wild. Like since I've been here, two people have unalived themselves. What the F?
Oh
Like that's
wow.
crazy. Like because of the religion, the pressures of the religion and their parents. And it's like one of them is we were on the way to his birthday and he did it like when we were on the way there. So when we pulled
Wow.
up, there's police, ambulance, and I'm like, what's going on? And so I learned about the Mormon religion and all this stuff. And now whereas it's at compared to 2005, you look at the Mormon religion, people are coming out with their stories. They're coming out stories of
Mm.
getting away from the religion and how toxic it has been for them growing up in that. Um, and so going to school in Utah for that year was a trip. I was like, what is going on?
Wow.
But I learned a lot and being chasing after my history degree. I thought it was always fascinating to learn about different people and their history, religion, all the crazy stuff that
Yeah.
crazy Europeans have done since being here.
Um, have you side squirrel? Have you seen American? Is I think like American Prival or Prival on Netflix? Um,
No,
it, it's a good show if you haven't seen it. It just talks about like the Mormons and Native Americans and
I don't know.
uh,
Maybe I don't know.
it's
But I always
different. It
enjoy
just came
shows
out
like
though.
that.
It just came out.
Oh,
So
okay.
you said you
If
like
it's on Netflix, I
history
haven't seen
and
it.
yeah. Um, but you played ball in Alaska, and then it was like you said. I seen in an interview. It was like you were you even like got a chance to like go overseas. So like you played ball for a good portion of your life, and
Yeah.
then there was a moment where you were just like, okay, I don't want to play ball anymore. Um,
Yeah. So I went and played in a combine out in North Carolina and made a team to go play in overseas in Hungary. All I had to do was pay for the plane ticket, and I was just like, man, I'm so tired.
mhm.
I don't want to do this anymore. And by then, I had already put out my album Unfinished Business and was had been working on music because I took some time off between Utah State and the University of Alaska Anchorage. About a year, 2 years to be exact. And during that time, I had made a bunch of music, and so I had been dabbling with music since I was like 19, but I had never really been super serious about it. And then in between those years, started to get more serious about it. Then when I was on my way back from the combine, I got stuck in an airport in at the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and my flight got canceled, and then it was going to be I had to change it to the morning and all this stupid stuff. And at that time, a band was coming through on a red eye, and I ended up chatting with them just out in the waiting area at the airport, and they started telling me what life was like on the road and stuff, and then like right at that moment, I was like, man, I couldn't even imagine going to like another state or another city and like for me, being on a stage is like being on the basketball court, right?
Mhm.
But the difference is when you go do it as a musician, everybody's like, "Oh, come stay at our house. Here's food. We'll give you money. Blah blah blah. We buy you drinks. We buy all your stuff." You go there as an athlete, they're like, "We want to fucking kill you. Go back to your state." Blah blah
Mhm.
blah. And I'm like, that is insane. Like
Yeah.
you're insane. You're insanely good at both. But on one side, they're like just terrorizing you, and then on the other side, they're like, "We love you." So I wanted to see what that side was like. So I hung up the shoes and picked up the microphone and really went like full on. And my parents weren't too happy. And I don't think they believed me like that I was good at it until my mom saw me play at Red Rocks and in front of 10,000 people for the Prince tribute after he passed away. And she's like, okay, I think she's got this. And then I went and saw Kendrick Lamar after in SZA after Black Panther came out, and I was just
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't need to rap anymore. Like there was a couple things I was like, he's got it. I don't need to rap.
Mhm.
Like he's saying everything that I wish that I could be saying right now. It's perfect.
So you don't
I'll
think
say
you'll like you did take a
that.
break, so you don't think you'll pick it back up or what?
I mean, there was a couple parts to that. I put the music down because I saw how much it was kind of pulling me away from my wife at the time. And
Mm.
so I needed to focus on home life. I needed to focus on a career. So like became a tow truck driver. And for 7 years out in Oregon, I didn't work on music. And I didn't get back into the studio until like a month and a half ago.
Okay, so we
And
back.
just had a release come out with a buddy called Falling Over, with my homie Ty Frazier's Supernova. So that's streaming on all platforms right now. If you go on
Oh,
my Spotify, keep all the music, you can go to my discography, and that single will be in there.
okay.
But I think I was just so angry
Yeah.
that and the album that I did create, I trashed it, I threw it away because I was like, I'm not gonna do that to her. I'm not
Mm.
gonna tear her apart through my music and demoralize our relationship and just tear everything down that we had. Because I really loved her and I just knew I couldn't be with her anymore and I didn't want to go Kanye West on her. So, and like say all, because it's so easy to just tear someone
Yeah.
apart with the song and they have no way to respond.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's just ugly. So I think that I got to a point where I couldn't write anymore because it was so mean and aggressive and cruel. And now I'm finally to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not angry anymore. I understand my frustration. Now I can talk about this in a mature way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good that you acknowledge that too, and didn't get messy. Cause, I mean, a lot of artists, like if you're close with them, and they do speak on. I mean, you're literally writing about your life, so
That's
and
what
you're
my all
sure.
my music is about is my
Yeah.
life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh. And I think I learned from from the song News, how
Yeah.
it could affect other people other than myself.
Yeah. Um, and now, like after we talked at the beginning of this, it does make a lot more sense, that song. After you said that, so it is very personal. Like after seeing that, like I definitely get that now. Um, but it seems like it's very therapeutic for you too. At the same time, like that's your
Oh yeah.
release. So okay. You have grown a lot. But I wanted to say something though with back to the basketball, because when I seen it, you said you stopped because you felt like you can't you felt like it wasn't freedom for you anymore. You said like to a point where it's like someone telling you to jump and
Oh,
run and
basketball.
swim and all of this stuff. And I was like, that's, that's I didn't think about it like that, in that perspective. I mean, I didn't take it as far as you did, but I was like,
Yeah. I
that
didn't
is what
realize
they're
how
doing.
political. I didn't realize how political and like the history behind sports, like how much there really is. And I started looking at it when I was in Alaska. We've had people dropping dollars against each other over us
Yeah,
forever.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm like, what? And I start looking around at all the professional sports, and I'm like, what's the difference now?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
still, like, what
yeah,
is the difference? Like, you are
yeah,
owned, and like they're trading, literally
yeah.
trading people, and I'm like, hold on a second, like. Utah State, you had me, you talked to me, and you're like, oh, your story is so moving. I need you to go speak to this group of people. And in Utah, it's all white people. I need you to go speak to this group of people and tell them your story so they give us money. Like, what the, and not even realizing what I'm doing,
Mm,
until X amount of years later. So then I started hating basketball and I was like, this is terrible. I want nothing to do with this at
yeah,
all. But I found my way
yeah,
back to basketball and I love it. I came back to Colorado after my divorce and I was like, what am I going to do? And I was just like, I've been stealing cars for 5.5 years. Maybe I should go give back to the community and try to get back into God's good graces. And so I reached out to Gold Crown Foundation and was just like, hey, this is who I am. I played basketball here. These are my connections. I'm not a coach, but I know a lot about the sport and I'd love to get involved. How can I get involved? And then it just turned into
that's
it's like
awesome.
just gone like a blazing trail. I won Junior NBA Coach of the Year last year. I got hired by high school to coach. I opened my own another business, a basketball business. I'm the one-on-one instructor over at Gold Crown. Bill Hanslick from the Denver Nuggets, like every time I see him, he's like, "Oh, I got someone for you to meet." So, like the connections are great. There's people around me right now who really care, and
Good,
see
good.
potential in me, and I feel really blessed to have these opportunities and to have those people helping. And
Yeah.
I think in basketball in general, like I left it with such a cold heart, but when I came back, basketball was like, hey, I'm still here. I still love you. Like you did give so much to the sport and so much to these teams. We're still here for you,
Yeah.
and so I think when you don't burn bridges and maybe you have to go off for a little bit, and I think for me I had to go learn how to be me, the yin and the yang of all these things before I could come back to basketball because I was so emotional about it. And
Yeah.
now I brought in some logic with the emotion, and it's like, you've learned so much about this sport. You can literally help change lives. So
Yeah.
go do that. And so that's where I'm at right now, and I love it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome that it's just like came full circle for you.
Yeah,
You hung up the jersey for a while, but then like you found a way to just like get back in that space. And it's it's good because we talk about this like on the in past episodes of just like leaving basketball or sports behind and just finding our place, because like after you're an athlete for so long, you're like it becomes your identity. So um
yeah. I
it's
feel like it's very militaristic. Like I called it coming back to the civilian world. It's like nobody thinks the same way. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good. I'm glad you came here. I'm glad you told your story because it like you said, you went away for 15 years and you picked back up on it, and you found that passion and that fire again for it, just in like a different lane. So that's good for you, and I just appreciate you sharing that and sharing your story and
Yeah,
coming on Queen Talk. Um
I think that like after it's so funny. Like sometimes when I say things, I feel so old. Like, where the hell does he go? But I really feel that, we come here for a purpose. And I feel like we're supposed to learn something, obviously, become really good at it, and like give that shit away to other people as much as you possibly can, whatever that gift is, and you'll know it when you land on it. You'll be like, oh, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This feels right.
yeah.
Right. And I think it's like the being able to have the gift of giving. Like if the more we give, the more we get. And if once you lose track of the mindset of like, well, if I give, then I should be getting. Like when you're just naturally giving, when it's something that you absolutely are just maybe born to do, or
Mhm.
you churned that butter for so long and now it's just this fine whip, and like you're able to come back to it like I did, and just be right back in it like you never left it.
Yeah.
That's the moment that I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be at.
That's
No matter
awesome.
how hard things get, this is where I'm supposed to be at, and these things will pass. I will get through it, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And if I stay here, all these things are going to fall in
Yeah.
line.
And it takes time. Like you're
Yeah,
in your 40s now, like
yeah,
it's okay if it
yeah,
takes time. There's no rush. Um and yeah, there's bumps on the road and you veered off, but you came to it and you found it again. So that's awesome. I just have what would you like to leave the audience with today? Q.
yeah. Man, yeah, I would say this, like here's a challenge for everybody. If you have a mirror that you can get to, if you could do this for like a week straight, brush when you're right before you brush your teeth. Look in the mirror at yourself and tell yourself that you love yourself. Hey, I love you. You're amazing. I forgive you. And give yourself a positive affirmation. So do like four things, right? In the mirror that's looking inward and just speaking positive to yourself. Try that for like 5 days in the week before you leave your house and see if you feel different. Just see if you feel different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm reading a book right now, Think and Grow Rich, and it talks about just like your mentality is
Yeah.
literally mentality and faith. Without those two, like it's going to be hard for you in this world, and you got to have both of those.
Yep.
And it brings back to the quote, like a motto I'm now going to live by is "I'm too blessed to be depressed." Um, yeah. But yeah, this was a great episode. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been awesome. I appreciate you, Q, for being a part of this, and
Yeah,
hopefully you
absolutely.
guys
Thanks for having
enjoyed
me.
it. Make sure to leave a comment. Let us know what you think of this episode. And as always, family, friends, strangers, love, and
Yeah,
be
much love.
nice.